I believe, if you promise to take the following with a little smile, that I have diagnosed a new kind of illness, disease, which is very widespread. I'm sorry. I believe I discovered a new disease, a new kind of illness. Promise me to take the following with a smile. I'm not entirely serious when I call myself the discoverer of a new disease. I call it restoritis, the desire to restore the days of old, the desire to restore the glory of the past. Some time ago, I met a brilliant young Palestinian intellectual who lives in Paris and teaches in a French university. His family originates from a small village very near Jerusalem, very near the outskirts in Jerusalem where I grew up. I knew this village very well. This young man doesn't know the village because he was born after the Palestinian calamity, after 48. His family, his entire village, they were driven out, maybe fled, maybe partly driven out, others fled, I don't know. But this village of Lifta, his village, no longer exists. It was wiped off the face of the earth. Now this man told me that his greatest dream in life is to have the family home in Lifta again. He only knows this home from family stories, parents, grandparents, pictures. It was a wonderful little village. It was a little paradise. 30 or 40 beautiful little stone huts, olive trees, a spring, fig trees, a herd of sheep on the slopes of the hill, vegetable gardens. Marvelous little idyllic, pastoralic village. And he said, I don't care who controls Israel or Palestine. It may be the Jews, it may be the Arabs. I am no longer interested. All I care is that I want my village back, and I won't even live there the rest of my life. I live in Paris and teach in Paris. But I have the right to go back, to have the family home back, to go spend there a month or 2 months every year. This is my home. You give it back to me, you will have peace. You don't give it back to me, you will never have peace. And I had to tell him sadly, my dear friend, you are never going to have the village of Lifta back. You are never going to have your family home back, not because of the Israelis, not because this place is now occupied by other people, no, because of time itself. Suppose every last Israeli Jew left the country, evaporated, migrated to the moon, and gave the Palestinians the keys of the country. You will still not be able to go back to the Lifta of your forefathers. And the reason is that if Lifta would have been left to evolve in its own rhythm, it would be today a small town of maybe 10 or 15,000 inhabitants, with cash machines and traffic lights and 4 or 5 story buildings and a supermarket and a big pharmacy and huge parking problems and no goats and no olive trees and no fig trees. It's time itself, not the Israelis. Time itself had taken your village away from you. You want it back, you miss it. Who in the world can blame you? No one can blame you. You have every right in the world to miss this village. Write a novel, make a film about it. Keep your longings. Who are we without our longings? We live by our longings, not just you, my Palestinian friend, every one of us. But don't, for God's sake, don't try to take your credit card and try to cash your longings, your family memories in the present. Because this is very dangerous. It cannot be done. You have lost in time something which you will not be able to find in place. It's in time, not in place. Exactly the same applies to romantic Israeli Jews who want to restore the days of old, the kingdoms of Solomon and David. They want to rebuild the Temple of Solomon instead of the Muslim mosques. Forget about the danger of Armageddon if the Jews try to replace the mosques by a temple. Forget about the bloodshed. Just the physical part that the new temple will have to be equipped with air conditioning, closed circle televisions, security measures. It will be too small because in today's numbers of Jewish population, it will have to host God knows, 60, 70,000 people who come to pray every day. What about toilets for everybody? The Mount of Temple is too small. What about parking for everybody? What about physical space for so many people? You have a dream, keep it as a dream. If any human being dreams about his or her first love, perfectly legitimate. We all preserve our first loves. But if you knock on the door of a person, a man or a woman, and say to this person, listen, you were my first love, I want you back, you go to an asylum, you go to a med institute. This person has a family now, children probably, grandchildren. You cannot restore your first love. There is no love, no way. You cannot leave your first love for a second time. If a person is eager, extremely eager, nostalgic about his or her childhood, very nice. We live by the memories of our childhood. But if you start acting like a 5-year-old, you need a treatment. You need to see a doctor urgently. Moreover, you may become a very dangerous person. Now I diagnose these restorities in Palestinians, in Israeli Jews. I diagnose it in many Europeans who dream about better times of the past. Many Americans who believe in the promise to bring America back to its great days, to the days of greatness. Bygone days are bygone days. They are our treasures in our memory, in our longing, in our dreams, in our fantasies. Don't ever go to the cash machine and try to transform your memories into reality. Now, someone may ask, what about the entire Zionist project? The return of the Jews to the land of Israel. It's not the same. In Jewish diasporas, for thousands of years, the Jews used to pronounce the sentence, next year in Jerusalem. They did very little about it, almost nothing. They only started coming back to this country, my own parents, my grandparents, when they were persecuted, destroyed, murdered in Europe. That's when they came here. Not because of the childhood memories, not because of the emotional love of Zion, not only because of the prayer book, because in the 1930s and earlier, this was practically the only door opened to many Jews, first from Europe, then from the Arab countries, from the Middle East. The only door that was not shut in their faces. They came here not because they really preferred Jerusalem to the French Riviera. Many of them would have preferred the French Riviera, but nobody wanted them on the French Riviera, or in America, or in Scandinavia, or in France, or in Australia, or anywhere. They came here because they were drowning, and they seized the first plank they could seize. Now, some of the militant Israelis, the militant Zionism, they were contaminated. They have been inflicted with restorities. They want the days of old. They want the kingdoms of David and Solomon. They want the ancient glory. That's where we should sound the alarm. This is restoritis, and restoritis is a very dangerous disease in all of its manifestations. Except if you write a novel, paint a picture, produce a film about the past, love the past, dream about it. Don't ever try to restore it.